All right, so this is related to the cat falling from the top of the Sears tower. This is a major mind twister. The reason why this becomes a major mind twister is because the longer the distance of fall is, as it so happens, the better the cats will do. In fact, anything over 70 feet, the injuries tend to be less severe. Anything under 70 feet, the injuries tend to be more severe. And your mind at this point has a hard time computing this. And there's a real good reason for it. It becomes very confusing. This is otherwise known as the high-rise syndrome. All right, so the cats in high rises, for various reasons, they fall. And eventually, the vets are the ones who notice the pattern. They notice that anything above 70 feet, forget it. I mean, injuries are there, maybe a broken tooth or something, but they tend to be fairly non-life threatening.
The story of Gizmo the cat, who some might argue is living on borrowed time after the death-defying plunge it took. CBS 2's Scott Rappaport introduces us to the cat who has 8 lives left.
If every cat indeed has 9 lives, it's safe to say Gizmo here has already used 1 up.
He's extremely lucky.
The adorable 4.5-year-old Egyptian Mao plunged 13 stories from his owner's penthouse balcony and somehow lived to tell the tale. Well, that is, he can actually talk.
It's definitely a miracle.
Gizmo's owner, Samuel Jacobs, is happy to talk for him.
I just look at him now and just think in my head, I can't believe you survived that.
Sometime between Monday night and Tuesday morning, Gizmo got out onto a 16th-floor terrace railing here in Murray Hill. And then the unthinkable.
Gizmo apparently slipped off the terrace railing and went flying off the balcony, falling 13 stories below and landing on a skylight.
When Jacobs couldn't find Gizmo, he looked over the balcony and couldn't believe what he saw.
I saw Gizzy on the 3rd floor laying there. I didn't know if he was alive. I didn't know if he was dead. I was thinking he was dead.
But incredibly, somehow the feline survived his terrifying flight of fancy, emerging with just a broken tooth and some scratches.
Unbelievable. I thought he was at least going to have, broken body parts, broken legs.
No. The cat who cheated death. Catastrophe averted. Scott Rappaport, CBS 2 News.
All right, all of a sudden this becomes a bit of a mystery. Because why is it that the longer the distance is, the better the cats do? How's this possible?
Because of the muscles in their shoulders.
All right, Christian, give yourself 5 points for that one. All right, so that was the secondary reason. So what's the primary reason? So that's what we will discuss. So, okay, the reason why this happens, fusion happens, is because
Stearns will journey
of the emphasis that we end up putting, so much emphasis we end up putting on free fall.
to the edge of space in a
So what's free fall?
helium balloon similar to
Free fall is the motion under the influence of gravity and gravity only, right?
this one. By the end of the 2.5-hour trip, she will face a world of danger. When she bails out, there will be no breathable air.
I want free fall because there isn't any
She's going to go 25,000 miles up.
dynamic
Guys, the atmosphere extends about 52 miles, so she's going to go halfway up.
pressure against me.
So higher up you go, the less the air is, right?
I am going to go so
So if that's the case, the only force acting is gravity.
fast in about
So it's free fall,
60 seconds. I'll reach a speed of approximately 1.3 Mach.
which is almost 900 miles per hour.
That's 885 miles an hour.
All right, so if gravity is the only force acting, you will keep speeding up at a constant rate. So you will keep gaining speed, and within a minute, you're going about 900 miles per hour.
Faster than the speed of sound.
So the longer the distance is, the longer the distance that you follow, the faster you will go. Okay, and we got ourselves conditioned to think within those parameters. All right, in free fall, weight doesn't matter. Everything is going to accelerate at the same rate. Your horizontal motion doesn't matter. Everything is going to fall at the same rate. That's what gravity does. But real life is different. All right, there's more to motion than just gravity. There's more to forces than just gravity. For example, when you go skydiving, they give you a parachute, and there's a really good reason for it. The reason why they give you a parachute because it slows you down. All right, not think of jumping without a parachute because the air friction does matter. Don't forget that the air friction does matter, and the air friction plays an important role. All right, so what does the air friction do? When you jump from the sky, gravity pulls you down, that's your weight. You got the retarding force, this is the resistance, or R. So what happens is you start to gain speed, the retarding force is going to get larger and larger. So this resistance, the retarding force, at some point is going to become equal to your own weight, right? So you got two forces acting on you, one down, one up, same size, same magnitude, opposite directions. So they will cancel. That's what happens. So they will add up to zero. They will cancel. You're still moving, but now you're moving at a constant speed because you stopped accelerating. The speed which you're following is known as your terminal velocity. So the air friction acting on your body is going to balance the weight. At that point, the net force is zero. Forces will cancel out. You stop accelerating. You're still following, but you're following at a constant speed. That speed is known as your terminal velocity. For an average sized human being, it's roughly about 120 miles per hour. The thing about reaching your terminal velocity because you stop accelerating, it no longer feels like you're falling. It feels like you're floating. All right, so the falling sensation becomes replaced with the floating sensation. That's what happens. When you feel like you're floating, your muscles relax. At this point, you can start having fun because it feels like you're floating. You can spin around. Drink your Pepsi and share it with the other animals. Life becomes fun. All right, so what do we know? We know that the terminal velocity is a product of air friction, so it's going to be related to air friction. So the next question is, what variables, what factors contribute to air friction? All right.
Stearns will journey to
The first one is fairly obvious. This woman is 25 mile high up. There's not much air. As soon as the air becomes thicker, she's going to slow down. She's not going to be going at 99 miles per hour. She's going to slow down to 120 miles per hour at some point. So the biggest contributor to air friction is the air itself. So it's the air density, right? The density of the air is the biggest contributing factor.
The accident that leaves a jumper out cold and spiraling out of control.
13,000 feet above Laurel, Delaware, a cameraman rolls tape on a team of skydivers. They're called street gliders, expert aerialists who fall at speeds approaching 200 miles an hour. The skydiving videographer positions his helmet cam directly above as the group links hands and goes into formation. Watch again. When the divers move apart, it slows their descent. The cameraman can't compensate fast enough and slams right into the formation. The impact is so powerful, it knocks the cameraman out. He's now free-falling unconscious, spiraling out of control. Then, at the 4,000-foot mark, something extraordinary happens. The cameraman regains consciousness for a moment. His jaw is broken, but he's able to open his chute.
I believe that what must have saved me was a audible altimeter. It makes a loud beeping tone. We'll set at about 4,000 feet.
Cameraman Dave Halleck survives to tell his story.
I went into a head-down dive in order to stay with him. However, as I came out and laid back,
we can't hear you.
These guys end up reducing their exposed surface area, so they end up gaining speed, right? So he's trying to keep up with them. So what does he do? He ends up in a head-down dive. All right, so now he's gaining speed. He's trying to keep up with them. And all of a sudden, these guys open up formation.
They then decelerated.
And then immediately, because they end up increasing the exposed surface area, so they will slow down much faster than he could compensate. So he ends up flying into formation.
I took a picture.
His jaw is still broken.
That's the
Wired.
last idea I have of anything that I can remember.
But Dave's first accident in 3,000 jumps isn't about to keep him away from capturing on tape the sport he loves.
It's so much of an art and so much of that joy. That will do it again.
All right, so the first contributing factor is the air density. Second one is the exposed surface area. The third one is commonsensical. Notice that this guy jumps, right? So gravity is the only force acting. So what's happening is he's going to speed up. As he starts to gain speed, the frictional force is going to start to get larger. You're driving at 30, stick your hand out, you will feel the friction. At 60, the friction is going to be much larger. So the third contributing factor is going to be the speed of the falling object. Air density, you got the exposed surface area. The third one is the speed of the falling object. That's it. Okay, and there's a fourth one, and then that's the one that we will do after the break. So go take a break for 10, be back within 10, and then we'll take it from there. It's related to air density, exposed surface area, and speed of the falling object. The last one is going to come from this clip.
Then John Vincent.
People compared to having sex in a car accident, you know, it's just so intense, but so exciting, so scary.
John has secured his reputation as one of the preeminent base jumpers in the world, due in large part to his illegal jump off this, Manhattan's 110-story World Trade Center. John tried to make this jump once before, but was stopped by building officials. Now, 1 year later, as a friend videotapes the event, he's ready to try again.
Hey, 1 minute. It's already
With his parachute concealed beneath a jacket and sweatshirt, John successfully makes his way past security. The World Trade Center has only been jumped 4 times before, landing 3 of the people into police custody. If John succeeds in making the jump and is caught, he could face jail time and a fine up to $10,000. John waits for the security guards to become distracted. Then he makes his move.
When I finally got over the fence and I was there, it was just a big relief to finally get to the edge and be able to jump.
John checks to make sure that the wind is blowing safely away from the building.
Oh, there goes the streamer.
All right, so what's the purpose of the streamer? The purpose of it is to check the conditions, right? Conditions of the air mass. If it's windy, if it's snowy, if it's cold, if it's raining. These are all factors that's going to play into air friction.
Conditions are good, and there's no stopping him now.
There he is. He's up on top. There he goes. Oh my God, Gorgeous.
His jump is picture perfect. Unfortunately, John has left little time to savor his victory.
There's intense thrills. I mean, more so when you're doing an illegal jump. Especially when you hear sirens, your adrenaline gets going a whole lot more and you run a lot faster.
John was never arrested for the World Trade Center jump, though a later jump off the St. Louis Arch does land him 90 days in a federal prison.
No, I didn't see anything. I don't know. I just saw some guys running around. So.
Despite the rush of those bad boy days, John now pursues only legal base jumps.
All right, so the contributing factors: air density, surface area, speed of the falling object, and the conditions of the air mass. All right, now we can come up with a mathematical model. Okay, so what we have, weight is going to pull the person down. You got the air friction is opposing the motion. This is the speed of the falling object. Eventually, it's going to start to reach the terminal velocity. So this is going to represent the terminal velocity. All right, so we know that the air friction is going to be directly proportional to air density. So rho is air density. Proportional to the surface area, exposed surface area. Proportional to speed. And lastly, it's going to be proportional to the conditions. C is the conditions. All right, so we'll come up with a formula. We're going to come up for a formula for air friction. So being physicists for case like that is straightforward, because the only thing you have to do literally is multiply everything in sight, multiply every single expression that you have, and then make some adjustments based upon some experimental results. So this is known as an empirical formula. Empirical means experimental. All right, so this is the formula that's going to approximate what air friction does. It approximates the frictional force, air friction force, air resistance. And then now we have to adjust it for terminal velocity. So what happens when the air resistance becomes equal to your weight? At that point, you're falling at your terminal velocity. So at that point, we can take a look at the net force on the y direction. And so when you reach your terminal velocity, you stop accelerating. So which means that the air resistance is going to be the same as your weight, and the speed with which you're falling at that point is your terminal velocity. So what that means is you can take this formula and modify it. All right, so this F becomes your weight, so the air resistance is the same as your weight, and at that point, the speed is your terminal velocity. So this formula is going to get modified to look like this. All right, so F becomes W, V becomes terminal velocity. Now solve this for the terminal velocity. All right, and then boom, boom, boom. So this is the final expression that you get. This means it's going to have two predictions. It says heavier the object is, the faster it's going to fall. And larger the exposed surface area is, slower the object is going to fall. All right, so it's kind of straightforward at that point. It's got two predictions that we can test. All right, so he's trying to catch up to her. She's going around 120 miles per hour, so he's trying to compensate. So by reducing his exposed surface area, he's able to go actually faster, probably going about 200 miles per hour. All right, so he deploys his parachute, so it goes from 120 to say 15 to 25 miles per hour. All right, so her parachute is not deployed, so she's gonna keep on falling at 120 miles per hour, all the way down to the ground. So is she gonna bounce or is she gonna splat? What do you guys think?
Splat.
Most of you boss say splat. In reality, she's gonna bounce. Why? Because she's got bones. She's gonna bounce, guys. In fact, she's gonna bounce higher than this. They just dropped the dummy from 30 feet of bounce. All right, cats won't bounce. People will bounce. Okay, because you're bouncing, your impact time is gonna be much shorter. So that's gonna increase the acceleration. On top of that, you're changing direction, so that's further gonna aggravate the situation. So it's further gonna increase the acceleration. In fact, it's such a big deal that she bounced. All right, this scene is all about her bouncing off the ground.
We used to joke about it, didn't we? About some student hitting the dirt and digging in like Wile E. Coyote. I saw it, man. I was right here videotaping landings. I saw her bounce. I don't think we'll be joking about it anymore.
So you will bounce. People will bounce. Cats won't, but people will. All right, so what happens when, as soon as you increase the exposed surface area, terminal velocity goes down. It goes down to 15 to 25 miles per hour or so. So that's what happens. But how soon after you deploy the parachute will it go down? You have to give it a time. You have to give it a bit of time. It doesn't happen immediately.
Base jumping somehow manages to combine the most dangerous elements of both parachute jumping and mountain climbing. In this case, ambitious diver arranged for 2 cameras to document his 250-foot plunge. Those cameras rolled as he plummeted to Earth. But unfortunately, he failed to open his chute until literally the last second.
All right, so he's going about 120, and then he deploys the parachutes. And then you have to give it a bit of a time. You have to give it enough of a time. Enough of a time for it to actually slow down. Slow down to 15 to 25 miles per hour. He doesn't have that luxury. Hits the water around 80. He's got broken leg. So that's what happened.
12,000 feet above the Earth, and suddenly a parachute that doesn't work. It's a virtual freefall, all recorded by then 27-year-old Eric Johnson's own helmet cam. It begins when Eric's main parachute deploys, and for reasons unknown, his backup chute opens too, a mishap with serious consequences. Watch as suddenly the 2 chutes entangle, and the equipment meant to break his fall is rendered useless. His fate seems certain. As the doomed diver spins out of control, he barely misses power lines and the asphalt of a road. Finally, he crash lands, and nobody can believe what happens next. Thank God! The skydiver lived.
I think it was probably luck more than anything.
That's for sure. Eric might just be one of the luckiest guys alive, and even he can't figure out how he cheated death.
That's what I'm about to explain.
I had that feeling the whole way down. I was like, this is not survivable.
It's very survivable.
There's no way.
Oh, there are plenty of ways.
As an experienced skydiver with more than 500 jumps under his belt, Eric realized at 1,500 feet off the ground that he hadn't opened his chute, a full 1,000 feet later than it should have deployed. Eric knew he was in trouble, but concentrated on saving himself.
All right, guys, what happened? He deployed his chute. 2 of them end up opening up. They got tangled up. He still have a large enough exposed surface area. So instead of falling at 15 to 25 miles per hour, he's going around 15 miles per hour. All right, the 50 mile per hour impact speed can still be survivable. Most people do survive that with broken bones. It's not a big deal. He got lucky, a little bit lucky, because he ended up landing on grass.
Panicking, does you?
So that increases the impact time. And he does a few things which are really, really smart.
Yeah, absolutely no good.
There's a reason why he didn't break any bones. And part of it is because he lands on grass.
So I did.
A big part of it is what he does now.
Panic. I tried to handle it.
Eric broke his fall by letting his body go limp.
He let his body go limp. That increases the impact time. And the next thing he does,
I hit the ground.
he gets his body parallel to the ground.
And I hit like this.
he disperses the impact force onto a larger surface area. That reduces the pressure. That's a huge thing. This is a really smart thing. I mean, as a result, he doesn't even have any broken bones. And the last thing he did is the biggest difference maker.
Apparently, the brush with death wasn't enough to keep him down. He continues to side dive.
As of today, I would tell you I probably will never stop. But who knows?
Spoken like a true survivor.
He is
So 50 miles per hour.
absolutely not.
Survival for him.
But true to his word, Eric has made hundreds of jumps since his accident, and this man who bravely faced death plans to help keep people alive. He's a medical student.
Good for him. All right, now let's turn our attention to a fallen cat.
1 down, 8 lives to go. You wouldn't believe what a tough kitty in Boston just survived.
Can't believe this story. Sugar the cat is still purring and walking unbelievably after falling 19 stories from the window of a Boston apartment building. Amazingly, no broken bones, no cuts, just some minor bruising on her lungs. Sugar's owner cracked the window so Sugar could cool off while she went to work. She says there's no other way the cat could have ended up on the street.
And experts say cats can survive dramatic falls by splaying their legs pretty much like a flying squirrel.
So they kind of fly and it breaks their...
Have you ever seen like the really slow motion video?
Yeah.
They wheel their bodies. I'm starting to act like a cattle stuff, but it's pretty amazing.
So if we ever come across that situation, we'll just
Splay.
Well, there we go. Splay everybody.
All right, so this is up until I started this in the physics book, my freshman year in the physics book. I knew nothing about the evidence in them, obviously. This is the Fundamentals of Physics by Haldane, Resnick, and Walker. It used to be Haldane and Resnick. A lot of these lectures usually come from that book. That's considered the Bible of physics at the time. All right, so the main observation was this: they were talking about a cat falling 32 floors, and there was very slight damage to this cat. And then they eventually noticed that anything above 70 feet is going to be less injurious to the cats, and that's what happened. So if you think that in my spare time I go out and get cats from the animal shelters and drop them from different heights of different buildings, that's to free while using a cat, and just make sure that the cat is not going to survive this experience. We are going to get the cat disoriented. We're going to take the cat, place it into your dryer, spin the dryer for about 2 hours and 3 days, and then pull the cat out and then drop it from the building and check to see what happens to the cat. If the cat, and then the canopy opens, the cat is fine.
Told me that he was a miracle.
The thing of it is, it's just that it's got to be over 70 feet.
Gloucester, better
Every single case that we've seen so far,
known as G,
involves a cat over falling more than 70 feet.
to his owners. His friendly face was the subject of plenty of fireworks on the 4th of July, surviving a 20-story plunge from an Upper West Side apartment building. The cat crash-landed on the pavement with barely a scratch.
According to the vet, when you're 10 floors or above, you actually have an increased chance of surviving it because you have a chance to kind of right yourself and get ready to land.
Barry Myers has owned G since he found the cat in an abandoned building 16 years ago. The Myers mistakenly left the window cracked when they left for a long weekend, not knowing the danger in store for their curious cat.
In all the years we've been here, he's never even looked at the window, let alone, peeked his head out or anything. I assume he saw something and leaned out and tried to take a swing at it.
Lucky for G, he was discovered by a woman out walking her dog. She gave him water and called for help.
Everything came back pretty negative. I mean, he was obviously, in shock for a while.
G is on the mend, a little wobbly and has a feeding tube. He's bruised, banged up, but no breaks.
But he's getting around pretty good right now when he's eating, and he seems, relatively happy, all things considered. And he curled up on the couch with me and watched TV.
All right, so why is it that the cats falling longer distances seem to be better? All right, here's the reason why. How much does a cat weigh, guys? Those of you guys with cats, how much does your cat weigh? Healthy, normal-sized, regular, healthy cats weigh between 6 to 12 pounds, 6 to 14 pounds. Terminal velocity depends on the weight. So something that weighing 6 to 12 pounds or 14 pounds is not going to fall that fast. Their terminal velocities are probably 50 miles per hour or less. And that's what they do. They just open up. 50 miles per hour is survivable, even for a human being. For a cat, it's very survivable because of a simple reason that they actually got extra muscles. Extra muscles are able to absorb the impact so much better, which means that they're able to increase the impact time, and as a result, they're able to reduce the acceleration. But the question is, a cat falling from the top of the Sears tower, why does that cat do better than a cat falling a shorter distance, like falling 50 feet, 20 feet from the second floor to the third floor, or so forth? What's the reason for it? All right, so that's where it gets kind of odd. All right, so here's a cat falling from the top of the Sears tower, and here's a cat falling from the second or third or the fifth floor or something. All right, so what's happening is this cat is going to keep falling until it reaches its terminal velocity. All right, it's about 50 miles per hour. And then the cat is going to open up its exposed surface area, and now it drops to 45 miles per hour. And then that's the terminal velocity. So the cat is not going to go any slower than that. This is the speed with which the cat is going to go all the way down to the ground. So this cat is going to hit the ground at 45 miles per hour. Give and take. 45 miles per hour. Can a cat survive that? Easily. That's no problem. Yeah, sure. Absolutely no problem. A cat can survive that. All right, so they got extra muscles able to absorb the impact better because they're able to increase the impact time. That reduces the acceleration. And this cat falling from the 5th floor is also going to accelerate. And this cat is going to hit the ground at, say, 35 miles per hour. All right, this cat is not falling as fast as this cat is. The impact speed of this cat is about 10 miles per hour less than this cat is. Yet this cat is going to end up suffering more injuries. These injuries tend to be a lot more severe in this case, and injuries tend to be much less severe in this case. Now, it doesn't make sense because this cat on the left is still moving faster. So how come this cat is suffering less severe injuries than the cat on the right? So what's the reason for it? Any ideas?
It has time. It has time with air friction in it.
Okay, guys, tell me again.
The cat has time to correct itself so that it sprawls to and then land correctly on its feet. If it's dropped from a shorter distance, it doesn't always have time to roll over to its feet.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to give you 10 points for saying something interesting. All right, so let's check the hypothesis that Mark suggested. I'm going to check that hypothesis. Okay, let's do that. All right, imagine that this is the cat. Okay, those of you guys with cats, I want you to do this experiment at home. If you want to record it, go right ahead. And if you want to record it, let me have the recording of it. This should be fun. Do it on top of a bed. We don't want to hurt a cat, obviously. If you don't have a cat, use neighbor's cat. It's a fun little experiment. So imagine that this is the cat. So what I want you to do is we're going to gauge to see how much time or distance will a cat need in order to right herself up in the correct position. All right, get the cat, tickle, tickle, tickle. Make sure that you hear up her. Turn the cat upside down. All right, the legs are up. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Let the cat go from like 6 inches above the bed. As soon as you let go, the cat should be able to right herself up and land on 4 feet. A healthy cat could do that. It's not a big deal. Okay. Or you can make it fun for yourself and for the cat as well. Don't use the same cat. If you're going to do a different version of the same experiment, use a different cat because the first one is not going to trust you after that. The second one is a little bit more fun. If you're like me, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it more than the cat will. So get the cat, tickle, tickle, tickle. All right, and then you're going to let the cat go. While you're letting the cat go, just swing the cat as fast as possible and get your hands out of the way. Get your hands out of the way. Not only will this cat will have enough time to land on 4 feet, it's got to have enough time to scratch you at least 3 times. That's called the life experience. Healthy cats don't need a lot of distance. So the cat falling from the 5th floor has plenty of time. Neither cat will have any problems landing on 4 feet. The question is, the cat falling faster, falling at its terminal velocity, it's her terminal velocity, why is this cat end up suffering from less severe injuries than a cat falling at a speed of 35 miles per hour? What do you guys think?
Air friction?
Okay, so tell me what that means. Okay, guys, at this point, you have to kind of, you have to put together some thoughts, complete sentences, instead of, I need more than air friction. All right, so what's the only difference between this cat and that cat, guys? This cat.
That guy has more time on the air than the other.
Okay, we discussed that, so that's not a factor. Give yourself 5 points, so that's not a factor. More time is not going to help you or hurt you. In either scenario, both cats will have enough time to land on 4 feet. Okay, what's the difference between this cat and that cat? What's the difference between this one and this one?
The one on the left has a higher drop height.
True, but what else?
It's going to have a higher velocity when it reaches the ground, assuming they both have the same initial.
Given the fact that this is moving at a higher speed, why is it that this cat does better than this cat? Well, what's the difference?
Acceleration, because it's already reached terminal speed.
Absolutely, give yourself 10 points. Guys, this cat is not accelerating. So what happens when you're not accelerating? What happens to the muscles? It feels like you're floating, guys. It feels like you're floating. The cat is going, oh, it feels like the cat is floating. At that point, the muscles are relaxed. Here, the cat is still accelerating. This cat still has to go up to 45 miles per hour. This cat is accelerating to its terminal velocity. The muscles are much more tense. All right, so that's the difference that the physicists were able to come up with. With relaxed muscles, you're able to increase the impact. And remember, these cats have extra muscles. All right, so which means that if you can relax those muscles, which means they will absorb the impact so much better, which means that they're able to increase the impact time, and they're able to reduce the acceleration significantly. So that's the difference. All right, so
spring and agility.
Either way, the secondary reason is they got the extra muscles. Extra muscles will increase the impact time.
Their ability to avoid injuring themselves when they fall.
And reduce the acceleration.
Right.
Boom. Not going to work, so let's take a look at a real life case instead of theory, instead of speculation. This distance is about 100 feet off the ground. All right, so what you guys just saw is normally what happens to a lot of cats the person is capturing this on video, and there's a reason for it. The reason is this is not the first time this cat is doing it. This is just about the only way this cat is getting out. For the most part, there would be no injuries. The new stuff that you see is the injured cats. And this cat is just gonna jump. Cat is getting ready and then looks around and then he jumps. It's beautiful. All right, the landing is gonna be perfect. Notice that there's a second cat here. This cat likes being chased. Beautiful landing, looks around, and then goes, okay, time to run around. All right, so that's what happens to most cats. Their terminal velocities are relatively small. It's perfect landing. Obviously, they can absorb the impact so much better. So they tend to be...
Labs would like to present some reassuring work for cat owners living in high-rise buildings, carried out by eminent New York vets W.O. Whitney and C.J. Miller. They looked at the mortality rates of cats who have fallen between 2 and 32 stories. First, the good news, 90% survived. But there was something odd. The most likely floor from which a cat would suffer serious injury or death was not the 32nd floor, but the 7th. And the reason, the authors speculate, is this. As a cat accelerates, it stiffens up. It takes a drop of around 7 stories for the cat to reach its terminal velocity of around 100 kilometers per hour. Whereupon, the cat stops accelerating, feels no force acting upon it, and relaxes, increasing its surface area and flexibility. And hence, the area over which the deceleration provided by the ground is dissipated. Another one lives. Result, more cats live with longer drops.
Don't ask how they pull the ripcord. They're skydiving cats.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
A Swedish insurance company asked its customers to suggest web ads.
Think about it every night and day.
Ava, who insures her cat with a company called Folksome, suggested skydiving cats, spelling out her name. Putting it to R. Kelly's song was the cat's pajamas.
I believe I can soar.
A high five mid-air should have been a tip-off, but some pet lovers were upset. This is not funny or cute, it is cruel. That's disturbing. Wrong on so many levels, but they're wrong, says the company's marketing director.
I can reassure all cat lovers that the cats have not been skydiving for real.
A total of 5 cats starred in the commercial. They never left the studio. People were shot skydiving, then replaced with cats through the magic of green screen. Need a little windblown fur on 4-year-old Sarah?
They used a fan, yes.
One person reacted online by posting an aerodynamic cat with a message, "This kitty don't need no parachute." Actually, skydiving dogs are a lot more common, like Bugsy the Pug featured on Animal Planet. He even got stroked during free fall. After the chute opened, he licked his chops. Touchdown. And this Florida rescue dog skydives strapped to her owner.
She has her own oxygen mask, her own goggles. To her, it's the ultimate car window. She loved it.
Her tail wasn't wagging, it was flapping. These skydivers made the leap clutching an inflatable shark, put some teeth in their jump. We did dig up one snippet of video of a real cat skydiving. 4 years ago, a member of a Russian parachute club sewed a jumpsuit for his cat. The cat seemed calm till right before they leaped, but after landing safely, the owner said he, the cat, didn't even pee himself, like a lot of people do the first time they jump. It's not exactly raining cats and dogs, just sprinkling. Gino, CNN. New York.
All right, so a couple of questions. What if you, I don't know how you were going to do it, but let's pretend that you can drop a line from the top of the Sears tower. Do you think that the line is going to do just as well?
No.
No, why not?
It weighs a lot more. It'll have a lot more
Yeah, like 600-700 pounds. So that line is going to hit the ground around like 300 miles per hour. The line is not going to fare as well, right? All right, lastly.
Tonight, they're talking about a miracle baby. A 17-month-old girl is alive and well after surviving a 230-foot fall from a bridge. It happened in North Vancouver. Witnesses to the event say that she was being carried by her mother on a swaying cable suspension bridge. Somehow, the baby fell from the mother's arms 20 stories down into a rocky ledge.
Initially, we were told the baby was in the water. We went out onto the ridge to see if we could see the baby, and we could. The baby was sitting on a rock shelf at the edge of the river. And sort of miraculously, I could actually see that the baby was moving from the bridge.
The baby suffered some bruises to the skull, but is expected to make a full recovery. Authorities say they think the mother dropped the baby when she slipped, but they're still treating the fall as a criminal matter.
All right, so 2 questions. How did the baby survive? They don't weigh as much, right? 6 to 8 pounds, maybe about 10, no more than that. So their terminal velocities are about 40 miles per hour. And obviously, baby ended up landing in water, not rock. Okay, so that also increased the impact time. So that was survival impact. The next one is, was this an accident or was it intentional?
The baby suffered some bruise recovery.
All right, guys, it's a suspension bridge. Would you take a baby to your suspension bridge?
Authorities say they think the mother...
And notice that this is high enough. Okay, so all of a sudden, the police suspected that this was intentional. All right, you're falling. You have to really throw the baby overboard.
Dropped the baby when she...
So they noticed that the baby had the Down syndrome, so she got arrested. So that's
Slip.
the story.